is part 15 of A Link Between Worlds, and this part will be finishing off the House of Gales. Yep. And right here, we're going to start off by taking on Heedles, I guess, which is plural for this mini-boss right here.
I was actually a pretty big fan of this mini-boss. They're pretty easy.
Yeah, they are easy. Well, most enemies, actually, this is kind of an easier game, but...
In general. I do feel like, though, the first couple of dungeons... We had just, the mini-bosses were like just a group of regular enemies.
Yes, agreed.
At least this one, it was something
a little bit different.
Yeah.
You know, it's so weird seeing a warp point after a mini-boss.
I know.
And then seeing like a big treasure chest in this game.
I know. I feel like almost every other Zelda game, you kill off the mini-boss, and what do you get? You get the dungeon item.
I think it actually is every Zelda game, to be honest with you.
I think it probably
this is like the first Zelda game that was kind of, well, except for the original.
Well, yeah.
This is the first one that was kind of, you know, open world, and you could also get whichever item you wanted to, which even the original Zelda didn't have that, so...
I mean, plus, we already got the compass and the big key back in part 1, so all we could get there, I guess, was a warp point.
Now, one thing I've not really mentioned, there's like a slight green to this dungeon. I just love that slight green color. It just goes along really well with the, obviously, with the dungeon.
It does, and I know we've mentioned like the Wind Temple from Wind Waker before, but I think like this, the color scheme in this, with that little bit of green in it, reminds me of that Wind Temple.
I agree with you. I do agree with you. Man, I love that Wind Temple too. Yeah. Going along with this. Like I said, like I know I said it a couple times, but just. Like, I think the fact that we don't have a lot of wind dungeons make me always like them, and they're just played, like, really well, and, like, something you kind of are talking about in the last part, like, just how the wind, like, kind of blows you up to the next level, like, you know, just something little like that instead, like, you see it right here, instead of using stairs, it's just, like, a cool little detail right there.
And I liked how in this one, we had the fans to do it. Back in the Tower of Hera, we had, like, the springboards that we hit with the hammer.
Yeah, that was fun, too.
So I just feel like in the transition, when you go to the next level,
yes,
really cool. It takes full advantage of that 3D.
Like, you know, if you had the 3D depth on, whatever that stupid word is, like, you know, that kind of added a little bit to it also, so.
It does, and anything, again, that's just a little bit different. You're not just walking up a flight of steps like Eastern Palace.
Like, this is maybe just looking at the details too much, but I love the stone. I love the stone floors. Like, I'm sorry. Like, this is a very scenic dungeon.
It is.
There's not a lot to it, but it works. It comes together. I love this dungeon. I love this dungeon. I'm not gonna lie, it's one of my favorite dungeons in this game.
One thing I'm a big fan of, the ability to merge really lets, even though like one room, you're on the same level and everything, but I feel like with the ability to merge and get to higher levels within the same room, I mean, we're not really seeing it right this instance, but I feel like it adds a depth to some of these rooms that wouldn't be there if you didn't have that merge ability. It also wasn't there in previous games at all. It's like, you know, one level was usually just one flat room, at least in the 2D games, obviously.
Now, I know in like the first two dungeons we merge against walls and use those a little bit to figure out puzzles, but I really feel like this is the first dungeon where those like merging became hard. Like, okay, I can merge it to a wall, but where exactly can I go now?
You had to really think about it.
Yeah, you had to really think about it. And this is the first time in the game where I felt this way. Now, obviously, you can play this dungeon second.
Yeah.
But I felt like this dungeon was just a little bit more tougher to figure out than Tower Hera.
And that's one thing I guess we will kind of hit on a little bit, especially once we get to low rule. You know, if we say we're playing, you know, the third dungeon of the game or the fourth dungeon of the game, whatever, that's just for us.
The order that we play them, exactly. Because you can go and, I think there's like, there's one item that you have to get before one dungeon, low rule. We can talk about that when we get there. But I think when you get to low rule, you can play every dungeon, like in any order you play, like all but one.
Yeah.
Whichever order you want to. So I'm trying not to spoil too much right there, so I had to think it through a little bit.
So you may hear us refer to, like, you know, the third dungeon or whatever. That's just for our playthrough.
Now I hate this room right here because behind the scenes I messed up this, like I fell right here the first time recording this. I kind of just like wasn't sure exactly like how to cut the video.
Yeah.
And so I ended up re-recording this whole dungeon, and then I fell again in the stupid same part.
I mean, I think it's okay to leave in there the first failure.
Yeah.
At least it doesn't drop you to a lower level to where you have to work.
That'd be so frustrating.
That would be brutal.
It's not really a puzzle, but I just love that right there. Like how you have to use the tornado rod and then wait for the other platform to come to you.
Yeah, using the tornado rod on those moving platforms like that, I thought it was another creative use of the tornado rod.
Now, going along with one of my favorite dungeons in this game, this is one of my favorite bosses. It's not, I mean, I'm not talking about my boss ranking, but this is a very high boss on my list.
He's up there for me too, and I just love how he continually gets taller. As you're seeing right
his
here.
name is Margomill. Margomill, which is kind of a weird name.
Yeah.
But whatever.
But like using the tornado rod to get on top of him to attack the eye.
I just love how he got taller too, man. This sucker right here, I mean, he had some power. He can knock you off.
And I like, since he's the boss of the wind dungeon, it doesn't really look like there's a lot of wind.
But he's got, he's got the wind jets coming out of him, exactly.
Which, if he gets you near the edge, those will knock you off the side. And thank God, though, if you get knocked off the side, it does not restart the fight.
Yeah, it's like Moldorm. Yeah, like Moldorm, exactly right. Now, here's one thing, like, you see how tall he is right here, which is one of my favorite parts of the dungeon. I wish, I don't know how mechanics would work because the tornado rod flies like a certain level each time.
Yeah.
But if we could use somehow a fan,
that
the tornado rod would go all the way to the top instead of, I think every time that we fly to the top of him, he only has like 2 pillars.
He does, because we have to cut the pillars out from underneath him. How cool would that be to have a fan? You had one of the corners, and you have to time it to where you get on top of him that way.
But I'm not going to complain too much because this was a very solid. Man, he got me. He got me right there. I mean, once he starts hitting you, I mean, he just takes you for a ride.
And that's why it's best to stay in the middle if you can. I mean, obviously, even though he's knocked us off a couple times, he doesn't do a ton of damage to us. If you keep swinging your sword, normally you'll be in good shape on him.
And also, like, this is like the first new boss, really. Like, I mean, in the Eastern Palace we had Yuga, which was a new boss.
Yeah.
We kind of already ran into Yuga, and so...
We at least met him.
Yeah, I think I might say her. I'm not really sure.
It would be the first time we made that mistake.
We're gonna get that confused a couple of times in this game, but just
I do think this starts a trend of very strong bosses all throughout the rest of the game.
Yeah, I mean Moldorm. I did like Moldorm, but the fact that we already had him, in the same area in Link to the Past, kind of took a little bit away from him.
Yeah, that's gonna be a tough ranking to come up with when we start ranking our bosses.
Yes, I agree.
That's gonna be a long way down the road.
And then right here, I think we ended up actually getting the Pendant of Wisdom, which. Zelda gave us earlier the courage, and I don't understand why she gives the wisdom.
But anyway, this wraps up part 15.